Monika, thank you very much for joining us. I'm very keen and interested in hearing your story, the mother of the home and the heart of an extraordinary life. But can we take it, first of all, just a little step back, your very early years, and you lost your mother when you were 6 years old?
Yes, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and what happened?
I've recently read a book called The Great Trek. It's accounts of the 14 million people who had to flee in front of the Russians from the German-Polish border towards the west, and what happened to them. And I actually found myself right there in some of these descriptions. We had to leave. I remember the Christmas tree was standing in the sitting room, and I had just the most beautiful tricycle for Christmas, and we had to leave very suddenly. So I was on this tricycle down to the station, and of course it wasn't fast enough. So my mother took it, flung it into the hedge, and put a doll into my hand. We got onto a train, absolutely packed full. And already it seemed what I thought was a thunderstorm. The skies there were rockets, there was shelling going on. My mother did feel claustrophobic and wanted some air. And they said, no, we can't open any windows or doors because it's just not the right moment. But she then made her way to the door, opened the door, but because of the throng, fell out. And I guess the next thing I remember is we were all out walking and marching, and it was very cold. It was 20 below zero. I didn't realize it was that cold, but I read it in this book, that for 2 months the temperatures were that low. And all the children, the babies, died. They were being carried, but by evening they had gone. And the old people, many of them, were also put aside on the side of the road. One of my little cousins died too. We came close to Dresden, and here again there was, of course, the Germans had attacked the cities in England, and especially Coventry, and the cathedral was damaged, and there was a retaliation almost on German cities. And Dresden was one of the targets, and we were just on the outskirts. And everybody was rushed into a bunker. The doors were shut, but then suddenly they opened again, and I was pressed against the door, so I quickly made my escape, because I also felt a little claustrophobia, kind of. I ran into the fields, and because the sky was absolutely alive with fire, I lay flat, because we were always told in the thunderstorm, you lie flat. But I tried to make my way back to this bunker, which wasn't there anymore. And I thought what to do, and I sort of thought, the city is over there, and I better run to the city. And as I was going, there were hundreds, probably thousands of bodies lying everywhere. And the sound of the pain they were in haunted me for years. I could not get it out of my mind. But a soldier, he kind of beckoned to me and pointed to a flask next to him. And I still remember exactly what this flask looked like, and I unscrewed the top, an aluminium kind of screw, and gave him some water, and then rushed away, making for, by this time I had seen a big white sheet on the roof with a red cross. And this was the other thing we were told, to always find such a place. I arrived there, and they asked me my name, and of course I did know my name, but I didn't know very much more. And so finally, this doll, which my mother had pressed into my hand, I had given to my sister. I said, well, I can't identify anything except my sister has a naked doll. And so they found my aunt and my sister there in this place. This is 1945. Just before the end of the war, and we were all put into a big refugee camp. And there I had lice and scabies. I also had an infection of TB. But when the war finished, the people of the district were asked to accept some people into their homes. Well, God was very good to me, because He put me onto a very large farm. I think the happiest 5 years of my life really followed there.
Something healing with the land and the
Absolutely,
wide open
yes,
spaces.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It was close to the Moravian Brethren headquarters, Herrnhut, where Graf von Zinzendorf started the Moravian Brethren. And on occasions I used to go there, and I was very impressed. I also was impressed by the pastor who lived. The pastor was in imprisonment, but the pastor's wife and other women would come together and pray. And I used to go and look after her little children at that time. And I was listening and thinking, wow, these women believe, they actually have faith that God will do something for them, that they will bring the men back from imprisonment in Russia. I went to a convent school where we had many hours of Latin. But what did interest me was the black book the priest had. But I never understood, of course, what was in it. He said, it's the truth. And so, you know, just get on with it, what I tell you. But I thought, one day I'm going to read this book in German so I can understand it. Well, eventually I was confirmed in the Lutheran Church. But I hadn't forgotten the black book. And I thought, now I need money for this. So I went potato picking with a neighbor's boy for a whole summer and had collected enough money. And I cycled into a town and said in the bookshop, I said, I like to have a black book. And they said, a black book? I said, yes, it's the truth. And they said, oh, right. So they went to the back and they emerged with the Bible and said, I think this is the book you want. I was absolutely over the moon, cycled home. I was not allowed to read it. But I took it to the bottom of the garden and started to read. And it was the same time my father died. He died when I was 14. And I guess what I needed more above anything was a friend. And so when I read in the Bible how Jesus was the friend of children and how He accepted everyone who came to Him, I felt this is the friend I really want. And of course, it wasn't long before I read about, in John 3, that verse, and some others, which showed me that I was a sinner and needed forgiveness. And so I committed myself to the Lord Jesus at the bottom of the garden at that time.
So Monika, with this extraordinary childhood, times of, I imagine, terror and fear and loneliness and abandonment, within that you found Christ and committed your life to Him.
Yes.
And now, can we transfer or transport a few years ahead now, and you've found your way to England?
Okay.
And
yes.
You met Howard, and then of course the beginning of an incredible life ahead.
Yes.
You were incorporating your desire, if you like, of wanting to help children.
Yes.
Within the importance of raising your own daughters.
Yes.
There's a lovely quote that was in the book. Mum held the strings that kept Dad's visionary kites firmly anchored to the ground, allowing them to soar high. So you were the practical one, were you?
Very much so, and always putting on the brakes. I don't know where we would have finished up.
So how did you put on the brakes?
I think we are very different, and I voice my opinion readily, you might say, and I've got a very patient husband who listens, and together then praying, we would come to a decision we both could accept and go forward in.
So at the end of the day, despite the different, maybe radically different personalities, there was a recognition of the strength of the combination and of course your faith.
Yes.
Looking back over all the years of the life that you've had and the adventures and the travel and the heartache and everything, what would you say, looking back, what's been at the heart of it for you all?
We were very happy as a family, and in that context we were showing family life and love, which is based in quite a different way in those cultures where we have lived. We have done eye camps together, things like this. My work with the blind has been very challenging, especially in Mongolia at that time. And I've enjoyed that tremendously.
So a life of service and
It
love.
is really a life of service and giving yourself to people who are the most important in this world, really. Yes.
Thank you, Monika. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.